So far so good. We have been able to complete our design and also get the items from our state using the use selector. So right now let's go ahead and create a balance within this with this prices color. Take for example, when we have a negative value, we should have a red color over here rather than having this blue text. So for us to fix that, we are going to be making use of the price that we got from our item from the flat list array. So down here, instead of us to use this true ternary operator, all I simply have to do right now is to say if the price is greater than 0, you have to use this price, else you have to use the FF4500. So right now at the right side of my screen on this Android emulator, you can see the prices are changing. But let also create a balance. Take for example, we don't want our prices to have this fixed value that we put it here. We want it to get the prices from the state as well. So all I just want to do right now is this place that we have the price. I will say if the price as well is greater than 0, we can use the backticks. Remember that we have to make use of our naira, so I have to make do undo and grab the naira value, and let me start afresh. If the price is greater than 0, then I'll paste the naira value, then I'll paste the price. I think I have to paste it in front of this, then I can put the price. Or else if it's not greater than 0, that means if it is a negative value, we want to also use the naira sign. But for this one, we don't want the negative value. Take for example, if I put this over here, I think I misplaced this, so I just have to save that. Oh, where am I doing this mistake from? Okay, sorry guys for that little distraction. Okay, I think that should solve it. So right now you can see we have the naira sign in front of the negative value, which we do not really want. So for us to fix that, we have to make this to be an absolute value. So we can use the mat.apps, then we can pass in the price in between it. Now it's going to straighten up the value. Then we have for the ones that are negative, we have the negative in front of the naira sign. Then we have the normal price for the ones that are positive. So that's how we can definitely do that. So right now, let's go ahead and group most of these things that we did here, because the home screen is too a lot of code are here. So I'm just going to grab from this linear gradient. Sorry for that. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. So from this linear gradient, I'm just going to grab it, and we are going to create a file called card. So this is the end of it. I'm just going to cut that. I'm going to create a component called the card. So let me just put it down so that I can just create it immediately. And here I'm going to create a folder called parts. Now inside this folder, we'll create a file called card.js. Remember, we are using RFC to generate a class-based component, but we have to be careful because remember that we have some things that is on our clipboard. So I will just quickly paste that. I will export the default to be a card. So I'll just save that quickly. So if we import this, our app is going to crash because inside the card right now, we don't have all these things that we need, especially the linear gradient, the view, the text. So at the top, I'm just going to quickly import that. So here, I'm just going to import some things from React Native. So I'm importing the view. I'm also importing the text. I'm also importing the style sheet. And for now, I'll also import, let me quickly close the sidebar, sorry. I'll import something as well from native base. For the native base, I'm importing only the button. I also have to import the linear gradient from React Native linear gradients. Then I think that's it. That will solve it for the card. Then I can come over to the home screen. We'll just go at the top. So at the top here, just import card from, we're in the parts, card. Just comment that to be a let me just say parts. Then at the bottom, okay, we've already added that. Then we can save. So right now you can see our app still ran effectively. We do not have, oh, okay, we don't have an issue. Is because we didn't include the style. So we are grabbing the style of box, and there is no other style we are grabbing. So I will just come to the home screen. At the bottom here, let me just quickly grab everything here since we are not making use of the styles over there. Just come at the bottom here and I'll paste that. So that should solve it, and that error goes away. So right now, let's go ahead and also move this commented part of our code into a separate component. So in the home screen, I will just grab this part of the code that we commented out. So I'll just quickly cut that. I'm going to create a component called empty. So in the parts, I'm just going to create an empty.js file. Then I'll use the RFC to generate a component as well. So we can even put this here. We do not have an issue with that. So I'll just quickly clear that, and that will generate that component for us. So do not forget to import some things from React Native, that is the view and the text, because that's the only two things that we are making use of in this empty component. So right here I can just put down the empty. So if I save this, it's going to show right here. And do not forget to import it at the top, because why you see it imported is because I'm using all these Visual Studio Code recommendations to automatically import my components, especially when you install the ESC3DOS GraphQL plugin I told you about. So you can see the empty component at the top. So we do not want this empty component to be conflicting with our list. So the way we can sort that out is to make sure that we make use of the use selector. So look at the use selector over here. We grabbed our transactions, the transaction that we passed in our data. So this happens to be an array. So all we just want to do here is use as well a ternary operator, but we have to do this inside a curly braces. So we can say if the transactions.length is greater than 0, you just have to show the flat list, or else you just have to show the empty component. So that should solve it. Let me just put the question mark sign and format it properly, and you can see our no transaction yet is disappeared, but the transaction list is actually showing properly. So that's how we can sort that out. So right now, the next thing for us to do is to go over to the card component. So in the card component, we have to really organize most of those things that you see here. Take for example the current balance. These are the ones that we put by ourselves, and also the expense. These are the ones that we put by ourselves. And mind you, because we have moved let's say all the designs that we want into the card component, it will not be able to navigate to the art screen, because it's going to tell us that we do not have the navigation. So the way we can do that is to pass that navigation as a prop as well. So this navigation you can see in the home screen. Just come over here, just come over the card, just type navigation, then you can just pass the navigation. Then inside the card component, you can just grab it immediately with destructuring, and that will solve it. So when we save and we click on it right now, we are supposed to be navigating. So the problem I'm having right now is because I use a double curly braces over here, so it is supposed to be 1 because it's a prop. So right now, let's go ahead and click on that again, and you can see we are able to navigate to the add expense screen. So that solves it for that. So like I said, the next thing is to make a proper balance of our current balance and also our expense using our transactions list. So we want to be making use of the transaction list in the transactions array. So quickly, let's go over to that card again. So right here, we are going to be making use of the use selector to get from our state. So I'm just going to import from React Redux. I can get the use selector. Let me just comment this to be Redux. And inside our function of card, all we want to do is to grab the transactions. So we can grab, remember that we are using the structuring to pull the transactions out. So we want to get from our state, we want to get the state dot transactions. So that we get it for us, then we can pull the transactions from our state. So we do not have an error. That's why our app still working fine. Now we want to add all the prices together, both the ones that are positive and both the ones that are negative. So let me kind of show you how our state is. So in our transactions reducer, you can see we have the list of all the prices here. We only have these two to be the positive ones, and we have these ones to be the negative ones. So but we want to add every single thing here together, and once we add it, it's going to, I think, decrease the values. Then we can display the values in this current balance. Let me kind of hit okay. Let me close this one. But right here, let's get the prices. So we want to get from the transactions, we want to map and grab each transaction. We want to get all the prices. So this is going to be an array of prices. So let me kind of console.log this and show you that on my Metro bundler for you to have an understanding of what I'm doing. So in our Metro bundler, it says undefined, transactions.prices, and that's because we are using the word plural. So it's supposed to be a singular value. Let's check that again. You can see all the prices. We just created an array and filled everything using the map method. Then right here, all I just have to do is to create a variable called the total price. Now the total price is going to take the prices. We have to reduce each of these price. Now when we are using reduce, we get the previous value and also the current value. Is something like looping by itself. Then we just want to add all those things together. So we want to add the previous value, and also we want to add the current value, but we want to just add them together. Then we make it to be in base 10. Then we can make it to fixed, to maybe to a value of 2 decimal places, maybe something like 1.00 or 2.00. So right now, these total prices, we just have to go down and display it. So right here, we have the current balance. I just have to come here. Instead of us to have this default value, we can just put down our total price. So let's save that. And you can see, like I said, it's going to decrease the value, and you can see we have it in 2 decimal places. So that's why you can see 22 point. But I don't think it's kind of good having it in 2 decimal places. Maybe let's just get rid of this line of code. But I will still give you the source code of this so that you can just use it any way you want to use it. So the next one happens to be the expense. So for the expense, we want to create a variable called expense. Now the expense is going to get from the prices. Remember, we are only working with the ones that are negative values in the expense because they are the negative values. You can see that has this red text because they are the money that we spend from our current balance. So we want to display that on this expense section. So the way we can do that is to get from our prices all the array of price. Then we can filter. Let's just use price. Then we can say we want the price that is less than 0, but we also want to add them together. So the way we can do that is to reduce as well, get the previous and also the current value. Remember, we just have to add the previous and also the current value. Then we can make it to be in base 10. Then we can as well use to fix, but this is going to be in negative values, but we don't want it to be in negative values because the items, the expense that I want to display here, I want it to be in positive values. So I just want to multiply with -1, or let me just go ahead and console.log this so that you can understand what I mean by that. Console.log expense. So let me check my metro bundler. You can see we have -120. So these are the expenses that we made. You can see 20 plus 60, that's 80, plus 40, 100, remaining 20, that's 120. So we just want it to be in positive. I just have to multiply this with -1. So let's save that and check again, and you can see we should have it in positive value. So okay, you can see the positive value just appear right now. So let's just go ahead and add that in our expense card. So at the bottom here, I just have to go to where the expense is. You can just add expense over there. So you can see right now we have the expense to be 120. So I don't like the way all these fonts are. Just have to increase this to 20, or let me just make it 20. I think that's best. Then for this one, I can make it 15. I think it's better. Let me make it 12. Okay, it's far more better now. So the next thing we are going to do is to be able to add transactions. Then we can work on the delete transactions. So in our next part of this video, that's what we're going to do. So thank you for watching. Do make sure you hit the like button and also the subscribe button. So let's move over to the add transaction screen. The add transaction components. And let's quickly fix everything that we need to fix here. So at the top here, I'm going to create a variable called title, but we're making use of the use state. So this one is called the set title. We're making use of the use state hawk. I'm just going to leave it as empty string for now. We also have to create the price, which is the set price, and we just have to use the state as well. I'm going to import, I think the use state is coming from React, and that's it for the use states. So we want that whenever you type, let's say you are typing, we want to bind everything together to the set title or the set price. So in the first part of this is the title, where we put the expense title. So let me just go over to the add screen. So right here, I will just use the onChange text. So onChange text is going to get our text, which is going to set the title to the text. Or let's just change this to title as well. Then we can just quickly copy that. So at the bottom, you can paste it. But for this one, we are changing it to price. For this one, it's called set price. So that solves it for that. And instead of us to maybe I will not be making use of the button, but if you are familiar with React Native, you can really add that. It's kind of simple something to do. You can just quickly add the button, use the onChange or onPress event to listen to events that we call a method for you. So that's going to be your own test. So I suggest that you do that for you to have more understanding of React Native. But I'm just going to show you where you can get a button, and that's from React Native. So you can use the React Native button to quickly do that. But for here, we can use on submit editing. We want to call a method called submit on submit. I'm going to quickly create that method on submit. So whenever we submit, we want to check if there is a title, but if there's not a title, we have to tell the user to add a title. So we just have to quickly return an alert to the user that will say, please fill all the fields. Now at the bottom, we have to generate our own ID, because whenever we are going to be adding to our state, let's say in our transact, let me close all these components here. So right here, you can see all these IDs. So we want to generate our own ID. So I'm not going to be making use of the usual ID. We have a module for doing that, but I didn't install it. So we are going to generate it by ourselves. So let's use the math.floor. I'm just going to generate a random number from our math. I want to multiply that with 600,000 or maybe any value. Just multiply it, but just make sure it has to be a number. Then we can create a new transaction with our ID, with our title, as well as our price. Then at the bottom here, we now have to dispatch this to our action. Maybe let's say our Redux action. So we have not yet added a Redux action. So quickly, let's go over to our store folder. So in our source store folder actions, we have to create a transaction action. Now we have to import from types. Remember, we created two types, add transaction and delete transaction. So the first method we are going to be creating is called add transaction. Now the add transaction is going to accept the ID, the title, and also the price. And because we are making use of Redux Thunk, we have to use the dispatch over here in order to be able to dispatch this to our reducer and store it in our state. So I'll just have to bring that inside. So let's just go back to the add transaction component, and at the top here, I just have to get rid of everything that we are not making use of. So I will just leave the button for you. You can as well make use of that button, just like I said, to complete this in order for you to learn more. So whenever we are using something like a method from our state, from our Redux state, of course, we have to make use of what is called dispatch, and we get that from React Redux actually. So I'm just going to, sorry, not const, import from React Redux. So we can actually use the connect, but for now, let me not use the connect. Let me just bring the use dispatch. So at the top here, I'm going to create a constant called dispatch. It's going to init that method. Then right here, let me just comment this to be Redux. I can now import the add transaction from store actions and transaction actions. So we can use the structure now. Actually, I didn't export that, which is something bad, so I can export the add transaction. So you can see we now have the add transaction, and because you want to dispatch that, if you do not dispatch, it's not going to work. So you make sure you dispatch it, add transaction. Then we can pass our values. So we can just quickly spread that, and that solves it. So whenever we type, let's say I hit a Banku of, let's say I hit a Banku of minus 300 Naira and hit my enter, we're not supposed to be getting this value. It's okay. That's because I didn't add the exclamation mark before the price. So let's hit enter once more. So you can see we do not have any error, but in our transaction action, we can be able to grab those values right now. So let me just kind of console.log the ID, the title, and the price, and save. Open my Metro bundler. Let's go ahead and add that Banku again. So you can see the ID we generated, the Banku, and the price I ate. So right now, let's go ahead and dispatch and dispatch a type of add transaction and a payload of let's say const new transaction. So the new transaction as well will be accepting the ID, the title, and the price. So we can just quickly add the new transaction. So whenever we dispatch, we have to grab that in our reducer. So back in our reducer, not actually there in our transaction reducer, because we are making use of the add transaction, all I just want to do is I'm going to create a case of add transaction. Sorry for that. It's all caps, add transaction. Now for the add transaction, all I just want to do is over here in our case, we have to return. We get everything from our state. We take the transactions. So the transactions is now going to be, we put the first one we got from the payload, then we can spread the states dot transactions. So let's add that Banco once more and hit enter. So let's go back. You can see we have Banco here. So if you're a good fan of Banco, you should be able to have this Banco. But I don't know what the problem is. We are having an issue from here. I think we have the transactions. We kind of check. I don't understand. We are not supposed to be having this kind of value. I think that's because the price is not okay. The price happens to be a text, so we need to convert that price from being a text, because we're actually using a text over there. So we need to convert this price from text to a number. So we can just add a plus sign price. So let's go ahead and add our transaction once more. So let's add the Banco once more. We can add 200. We hit enter and go back. Okay, right now you can see we have a Banco 200. So let's say I ate a Banco of let's say Banco with soup. So if you're a good fan of Banco, this is your opportunity to learn programming. So let's hit enter, and you can see Banco with soup cost us 200, and over here we have our expense increased and our price totally reduced. So this is showing us that we are making a good progress. So back in our add transaction, one more thing, we are done with the add transaction for now. So back in our list item, so I think it's from from the home screen, we need to go to the item components and go over to the checkbox. So but before we make use of that, we need to create a method called delete transaction. So I can just quickly come at the bottom, export const delete transaction. So for the delete transaction, we want to delete with the ID. So we are going to dispatch. We have to dispatch a type of delete transaction. Then we pass the payload of the ID. So for this one, for the item itself, we can just get the dispatch, use dispatch. I think I was thinking maybe when we use dispatch here, maybe we are going to have a clash, but let's go ahead and try that. If that works perfectly, then that's a shortcut of doing something. So right here, I can be in the dispatch, which is going to use the dispatch method. And right here, we want that when you click on this checkbox, but for now, let me just give it a color of FF 4500. When you press on it, on press, we want to call a method a callback of dispatch. For the dispatch, remember that we are making use of our delete action. So I'm just going to comment this to be Redux. Grab this, put it here. Then we can import from store actions, transaction actions, delete transaction. So we are dispatching delete transaction with the ID. So let's save that. So when we click on this, say it couldn't find the word dispatch. So can't find variable dispatch. We are not supposed to be having that error. Let's refresh the app properly and see what will happen. Let's click on it again. Can't find variable dispatch. I think the problem is not from here. It's coming from our transaction action. We need to use the dispatch. Okay, we couldn't get it because we didn't bring it in here. That's why we couldn't find it here. So that error was coming from our transaction action. So let's click on it. So right now we are able to dispatch. Let's go over to our reducer. So we can see in the case of delete transaction, you just have to return from the state. Let's grab the transaction. Let me kind of arrange this because I don't want some space. Transactions. Our transactions are going to be from the state.transactions.filter. We want every transaction except for the one that has the same ID. So we can say transaction.id is not equal to the payload. Remember that the payload is coming with the ID. So let's save that, and that should solve it. So let's delete our soup, delete our mala soup. Let's delete PayPal, delete our bank, delete Gary. And right now you can see we have no transactions yet, and the current balance and the expense just turned to 0. So let's add let's say I traveled. Okay, let's say I made an income of this month. I made an income of 30,000 naira. So in my 30,000 naira, I ate an amala soup of let's say 500, and I paid for transportation. So let me say transportation of 50 naira. Then for that, GTB Bank just took my money, 20 naira. Then I have to eat what kind of soup? We have a dikaikon soup. We have all kind of soup in Africa. So we have something like a dikaikon soup. Maybe the spelling is not right. So if you are a big fan of this soup, please put that on the comments. 300. Oh, that happens to be negative 300. Then I went to Lagos. So I traveled to Lagos with 4,000 naira. Oh my god, my money is finishing. Then what again? So all the expenses in Nigeria. So guys, if you're really a big fan of Nigeria, please put that on the comment. So what did I do? So you can add a lot of expenses as well, but you can see all my expenses are listed here, and there is none I have to regret because they are from my place. So you can see we have travel to Lagos, Edikaikon soup, GT Bank, Kamala soup, income, and all these things. So lastly, I can say I ate a fufu. If I ate fufu of, you know what the fufu means. If you eat that fufu, you will not want to leave Nigeria again. So And that solves it for our video tutorial. So if you really enjoyed my video, I want you to hit the like button and also the subscribe button. And we have completed to build the expense tracker. And this tutorial has given you a good idea of how you can build your Android application. And also, even if you're a beginner, you can have a good knowledge of using Redux and also using the use selector to make Redux more easy, and also dispatching actions. And that solves it for our expense tracker. So thank you once again. Do make sure you hit the like button and also the subscribe button.